Over the last 6 to 8 months, Erik ten Hag has been putting in place massive plans for Kobbie Mainoo and has had this big plan for 6-7 months to integrate Kobbie Mainoo into Man United starting 11 this season. Back in April, he was given his own training plan. He was told to study the roles of Eriksen, of Casemiro. He was given a lot of time with Ten Hag and a lot of roles to study. In pre-season, he was given so many minutes. When the full squad was there, he still started versus Real Madrid and Arsenal. Man of the match versus Arsenal against a Declan Rice, and he would have played more minutes versus Real Madrid if he didn't get injured. And that long-term injury was a big setback for Kobbie Mainoo and Manchester United, because by the way that Ten Hag started Kobbie Mainoo in all these pre-season games, even the big games when he had the bulk of the squad back, pretty much showed that Ten Hag had this big plan for Kobbie Mainoo this season. He is a Ten Hag player. He's probably seen as Ten Hag's Frankie de Jong, and Ten Hag even let the likes of Zidane will go. So in today's video, we're going to be analysing Kobbie Mainoo, the kind of player he is, why Ten Hag rates him so highly, why he solves a lot of Man United's issue, and we're also going to be getting into bits of his game versus Everton and sort of analysing what he did so well. He's a great player at carrying the ball. He's very press resistant. He uses his body well. He's got great technical ability. He's got great work rate, great IQ. He can play as a centre mid. He can play as a defensive midfielder. He's been playing in that Casemiro role for now, but he could play in that Eriksen role. He's versatile, he's intelligent, and he had a very, very good game versus Everton. So let's dive into what worked so well versus Everton, and then what Ten Hag's plan is for this guy and how he can transform and really change that United midfield. So diving into the Everton game, there was 3 things that really stood out for me from Kobbie Mainoo. And the first thing was, whenever he got the ball, he wanted to progress the ball, whether he was under pressure or not. You can see he receives the ball here, he dribbles the ball up the pitch, and then he plays it forward to the winger. You see he again gets the ball here, dribbles the ball forward, plays it onto the winger. You see another position where he's got the ball, then he's turned around and he's kicked it right up to the winger, which was Bruno Fernandes at the time, which actually created an opportunity with Bruno putting across him. You see opportunities here where Kobbie Mainoo gets the ball, he drives it forward, and then he plays it out to the wide player. He was continuously progressing the ball forward. But what else stood about Kobbie Mainoo versus Everton was he always wanted to get on the ball. Even if there was midfielders around him, he would run into a space, quickly receive the ball, and then quickly lay it on. And sometimes when he'd get the ball, he'd have these players around him, and he'd turn and he'd move the ball forward, which is something that no Man United midfielders do. And Nana plays the ball into him here. And this is why Ten Hag wanted Frankie de Jong. He wanted a midfielder that was going to make himself available, get in and play between the lines, and then move the ball forward. He receives the ball from Onana, and he just drives the ball forward. He plays it forward, and he almost plays McTominay through on goal here. But it's not just the fact that he always makes himself known. He wants to progress and move the ball forward, which is something Man United lack. It was his defensive contributions. He headed the ball at a free kick. He cleared the ball off the line, which is a very blurry picture. And he put in this great block, which all happened when Man United were 1-0 up. And Everton could have very nearly made it 1-1. So we're going to talk about what makes Kobbie Mainoo so great, why he stands out, and why he's a top player. He always makes himself available to teammates. He wants the ball. McTominay, we sometimes see him hiding behind the ball. We've had times when McTominay's playing in that role, we're saying he's had 6 touches before half-time. Kobbie Mainoo had the most touches after Onana at the half-time mark with 41 touches. He always wanted to get on the ball, and he was very comfortable on the ball. When he had the ball, he wasn't just passing it back to Onana or passing it back to Maguire and panicking. He'd get the ball and he was like, okay, I'm going to scan around. I'm going to use my body to evade the press, which is something that none of the Man United midfielders have the capability of doing. And then he would get the ball, he'd kind of twist and turn, use his body to evade the press and progress the ball forward. It was kind of like that. He was Ten Hag's Frankie de Jong. You know, by Ten Hag wanted Frankie de Jong, and then we got no one like Frankie de Jong. He kind of reminded me of that a bit. He's also been compared to Pogba a little bit. And Man United, that first half particularly, second half versus Everton was good, but the first half was poor versus Everton. And the players at Man United were so erratic on the ball, they couldn't control the ball. They were 1-0 up, but they looked worried. They were not composed. And then Kobbie Mainoo would just get the ball, and he was so calm, he was so composed, he moved his body so well. It was like no one else. And then, you know, you look at his ability on the ball, but then you also look at what he did off the ball. The intensity of him, he covered a lot of ground, and something Man United struggled with, particularly with Casemiro and Eriksen playing in those big games, is ground coverage. We got ran off the park by Man City, ran off the park by Spurs, and Kobbie Mainoo again covers the ground. His favourite thing, and my favourite thing about him, is that he scans around him. He takes a touch, he evades the press, he scans around him. He wants to see where everyone is, to see if he can play the ball forward. And he had so much control when he was dribbling the ball forward. It stuck to his feet. the ball literally stuck to his feet. If I could give you clips without getting copyrighted, I would. The ball stuck to his feet, and he would play these forward passes to advance the ball nearly every time, or he would drive the ball up the pitch and play it out to the winger, as I showed you there earlier. And he's viewed as the long-term 6. That's where he played in pre-season, but he has the ability to very much play as an 8 with a good 6 next to him. And we saw that today. He's got the qualities of an 8. He's filling in as a 6 against a physical Everton side. And technically, he was a level above the rest of the Man United players. Technically, but physically, he doesn't look out of place for an 18-year-old. Putting in key blocks, tackles, dictating the play from deep areas, always wanting the ball. And we know that Ten Hag never got his young. We know that the Man United midfielders are not comfortable in possession. We know that Man United midfielders not retain the ball well. The only player that could retain the ball was Kobbie Mainoo. He was so much more calm and composed than the rest of the Man United players. It felt like a load of 18-year-olds and a 27-year-old Kobbie Mainoo, because Man United were panicking and we couldn't. We were being pressed by Everton, and we were like, what are we doing? What are we doing? We were under pressure by Everton and we were struggling. The Man United midfielders struggle in build-up. We've spoken about that 100 times. We keep going long, playing long. We can't build up through the midfield, and it's that balance. And Kobbie Mainoo brings some balance. He helps with build-up. He retains the ball well. He keeps the ball well. He keeps possession. He's a player that is press-resistant, that is happy to have the ball, that is comfortable in possession, that can break the lines, that can progress the ball forward, that is happy in build-up. And that's something that Man United don't have in the midfield. McTominay is better when he's making those late runs into the box and off the ball with his duels. Bruno is good in terms of just creativity. Mount is known for his off-the-ball work. Casemiro is known for just protecting the back four and being a threat in the final third. He's not known for his on-the-ball work. We don't have someone that's good on the ball, that progressing, carrying, scanning, being press resistant. We never got that Frankie de Jong player. And if you look at some of Kobbie Mainoo's statistics from this Everton game, you look at where he received the ball, total passes 42, pass accuracy 81, made progressive passes. You look at his passes, most of them were forward or little short sideways passes, and the longer ones were forward. His defensive actions, tackles 1, interceptions 2, recoveries 3, clearances 3, 2 out of 3 dribbles completed. You look at his map, you look at his statistics, and it says a lot. This was his heat map. You can see that he was pretty much everywhere on the pitch. He had the most of the ball when he was on the pitch. He was everywhere, always making himself available, always getting involved. The amount of times where McTominay's been a ghost. And, there's times where Casemiro's been really involved. But Casemiro's neglected his defensive duties, and we can see sloppy goals. He was really involved, but he was also doing his defensive duties, because McTominay left Mainoo alone a lot. McTominay did not help out Mainoo a lot, particularly in that first half. And Mainoo's there clearing the ball off the line, putting in that block, letting the ball go out for a corner, doing that header to clear the ball. He was doing his defensive duties. He's everywhere. And Mainoo sort of seen as the future. Bruno sort of seen as the future. But who's the guy to partner Mainoo? Man United looking at Amadou Onana, and that would allow Mainoo to maybe play in a more advanced role, which, although he's playing great as a 6, I think he has the capabilities to be an 8. He would have Onana, who's that physical guy that covers lots of ground, which can allow Mainoo to do his thing on the ball. And maybe that would be the perfect midfield trio. And maybe Man United's links to Onana, Fofana, that physical kind of midfielder that can cover a lot of ground, is because Ten Hag looks at Mainoo, he looks at Bruno, and he needs that third player. And Mainoo kind of reminded me of Cesc Fabregas. Cesc Fabregas, I remember this 18, 17-year-old, made his debut for Arsenal, and he looked ready. And Kobbie Mainoo looked ready. If you're good enough, you're old enough. And it was said by the Devil's DNA, 18-year-old Kobbie Mainoo bossed his first Premier League start and played like a seasoned veteran. Great in build-up, carrying from deep, consistently playing these game-advancing passes, had this defensive awareness, had this intensity, was the best player on the pitch at 18 years of age, and the generational claim seems spot on. He reminds me of a Cesc Fabregas kind of player where he's good enough at such a young age to come in. He should be starting. And I don't want to be that person that hypes him up and are we hyping up this kid too much? But every time he plays, he's good. He's mature. His maturity is beyond his years. He looks more mature than the other Manchester United players. He looked more mature than everyone else on the pitch. He looked more experienced. And he reminded me of Fabregas. And Ten Hag said on Mainoo, we have to develop players. Kids have to deserve it. It was painful for us when he got a bad injury in preseason, but he's back. And even Ten Hag said he's a very mature boy. He showed it's there like him. And we saw that he was comfortable on the ball. He was strong. And against the physical Everton side, he was composed. He was a good passer. He was a good decision maker. He's technically gifted. He can press. He's press resistant. He's mature. And one thing I like about Kobbie Mainoo is he's technically good. He's got the IQ. He's physically good, can cover the ground. Athletically was not out of place. But he's mature. He's got the work rate. He's beyond his years in his work rate, his mentality, his maturity. And I think he has everything to be a top player. It's just, will he get the luck with injuries? Will he stay on the right track? And I saw a few tweets that stood out to me. Kobbie Mainoo is the standard for a Man United midfielder. What a brilliant player. Brave, asking for the ball, confident but cool, headed in possession, technically secure. Certain teammates need to take note. Kobbie Mainoo's adept ball manipulation and first touch sets him apart from most midfielders in the league, eluding any pressing opportunities, second nature to him, which is exactly what I was saying earlier. And Andy Mitten said his strengths are close control, good body awareness, body contact. He's really good in both boxes. He's combative. He's got a nice blend of many skills. And this was piece on Kobbie Mainoo last season when I spoke to his coaches, and that's what academy players said about him. I spoke about Kobbie Mainoo 2 years ago back on the channel when he'd not even been near the first team because he was sort of 15, 16, and it was this season where we won the Youth Cup. I'd been talking about Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho, and I said I've watched a lot of Man United in the Youth Cup, and there was these two guys, Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho, that always stood out for me. And I said Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho 2 years ago, they stood out for me. 2 years later, they're the two academy players that are actually getting the minutes. Gore was third, and maybe Gore could be next. But Kobbie Mainoo, 2 years ago watching him, I remember he stood out. Right now, Shea Lacey could be that next Kobbie Mainoo, but he really stood out. And sort of my takeaway from Kobbie Mainoo after the Everton match was this. Kobbie Mainoo was incredible today for United. He appeared a level ahead of the rest of the team technically. He was composed on the ball, demonstrating experience and control every time he had possession. It's astonishing to think that he's 18 years old, having his first ever Premier League start and just coming back from a long-term injury. Many players struggled under pressure in the first half, but Mainoo was always there to help with control. He had that brilliant goal line clearance. He showcased his technical abilities, carrying the ball from deep, consistently playing game advancing passes and displaying high defensive awareness. He looked brilliant in pre-season against the likes of Arsenal and had a lot of hype and pressure, and today he did not disappoint on that hype and pressure. I'm also impressed by his ability to cover lots of ground, and technically and athletically he possesses the traits he needs to succeed by also having a mature mentality. And that was my takeaway on Kobbie Mainoo. A guy that we have to be careful not to hype up too much because he's an 18-year-old, and I think there will be inconsistencies. But a guy that I looked at and I thought, he solves a lot of the problems that we have. We've got a lot of issues in midfield, a lot of players that can't do this, a lot of players that can't do that, and Mainoo can. Kobbie Mainoo is a very special player. Anyway, please do hit that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.